Tonight, I wanted to start off by talking about restorations. Here it is, at least in the northern climates. Sort of crappy weather for driving your MG. Although my late wife and I drove our 1973 MGB GT 365 days a year. There wasn't a time that we didn't drive it. There were times when it was, oh my gosh, it was so cold. You'd start it up in the morning when it was 15 degrees below zero, and it'd start just fine. But you wouldn't get any more than about 10, 15 pounds of oil pressure. And then you'd wait for it to warm up a little bit. And then pretty soon you had the full 70 pounds of pressure. Oh my gosh, it was so cold. There was one time that I backed into a parking spot and backed into a snowbank, and the snow ran up inside the tailpipe and then froze as a plug. And I tried to start the car at the end of work, as when we were down on Eastern Avenue. It would not start. Cranked it over, it would not start. And I'm going, what is going on? And I get underneath and I'm trying to start it from underneath. And it'll sort of start and then quit. And as I'm watching it, all of a sudden I see exhaust making its way out of the intake exhaust manifold gasket on one of these failed starts. And I thought, aha. So I went to the back of the car and poked a long screwdriver in there and got rid of that plug. It was pressurized and couldn't possibly run. So anyway, unless I'm gonna hit mute all here, unless you are driving your car all the time, then it's sitting fallow in the garage waiting for your hands and your checkbook, your charge card, to make improvements on it. So there's a couple different types of restorations. One is a rolling restoration. You might do the engine and gearbox 1 year. You might do the front suspension the next year. You might take some of the lamps off and get it painted another year, and do an interior restoration yet another year as time goes on. So that's one way of doing it. It's not you can't get a really nice vehicle out of doing that, because you're overlapping and there's so much time involved between the steps that you're taking. But if you do go into it to do a full restoration, whatever you want to call it, frame up, frame off, complete, total, there's lots of different ways to describe what you might do. But if you're going to do it the whole way, then you got to sit down beforehand, because you're in for a project here. You're in for an incredible project. I restored my daughter's 73 MGB GT over the course of the last year, and got it delivered out to California maybe in June or July. And it was almost a whole year. We did not paint the car, but everything else we did. It was a GT, so I didn't take the glass out of the front or the rear or the rear windows. I didn't take those out, but everything else came apart. The doors were gutted, the interior was out, the dash was out, the engine and gearbox, the front and rear suspension, all the lines, all the cables, everything was off that car. And it was a full-time job for months. So it's not an insignificant project to get into. Sometimes the best way to do it is to sit down at the very beginning and pull out your Moss Motors catalog. I've got the big one here, but pull out your Moss Motors catalog and open it up to the sections with all the parts, and take a yellow highlighter and start going through and stripping out each item that you think you're going to need, and order it all at the very beginning. That way, if something goes on back order or is on back order when you order it, chances are that by the time you're done with it, a year or so later, that part will have come in. So sometimes you wait, and all of a sudden, you're right down to the end, and it's like, okay, I'm going to order the steering wheel now, and it's like, no steering wheels. Now, what are you going to do? You got this beautiful car with this old crap steering wheel on it, or something. So it's sometimes stuff's worse than that. That you can't get something done because you're missing this really important part. So you got to spend your time and go hunt around for it. So it's just easy. Open up a catalog and order it. You can make a case for ordering everything from the same place, Moss, for instance, because they have everything. Or you can say, well, I know that this other firm has a better part for this because you've read this kind of stuff on the internet, and people have all claimed that this other part is a whole lot better, or something. Or you want to spread the wealth. You want to do some business with these people and some business with these other people. You can order parts from England. You can get them from Belgium, or you can get them from Australia. There's nothing magic about getting everything strictly from the United States or wherever it is that you are. But it does make sense to order it all at the beginning. Then when it comes in, you've got to sort it out into sections. I would, engine, ignition, cooling, whatever, fuel, clutch, gearbox, drive shaft, rear suspension, front suspension, just like the workshop manual. Keep that stuff separate. Then when you begin your project, my suggestion is to take one part off the car at a time. This is the takeaway instruction for restoring a car. One part at a time. You can reduce that entire vehicle to a pile of nuts and bolts in 3 days. I've done it. Did it real early on when I was going to restore my 1953 TD. Just took a wrench and started taking everything apart. And I got everything apart I possibly could, except the stuff I couldn't. And then I broke stuff on the way. I thought, well, you take it all apart and put it all back together. No, let me tell you, when you're at home, you take one part off. You take the left rear tail lamp off. What are you going to do to it? You buy a new lens for it. You're going to put in LED bulbs. You got new gaskets, front and rear. What do you get one of the pigtails is missing a bullet connector. So you've got to solder or crimp on a bullet connector, get it all cleaned up. You paint it, you polish it, whatever you're going to do to it completely, and then wrap it up in clear plastic so you can see what it is rather than making cryptic notes or putting it into a box with a bunch of other random pieces with engine parts and gearbox parts. And it's like, no, the rear tail light, just wrap it up in cellophane, some kind of, go to Uline and buy some of that stretchy film, just wrap the thing up and then take the next one off and have it all set to go. All the nuts and bolts are with it, the clips that used to hold the wiring on the back side of it, everything is with it. And then go to the next one, and then go from there to the rear bumper, to the whatever. Go round and round and round the car, and eventually you get the car stripped down almost all the way. So the engine's out of it, the interior's out of it, and then you can send the body off to the body shop while you are doing the engine and gearbox and maybe drive shaft, things like that, or recovering the seats. Obviously, you can't exactly follow this one part at a time or you'd never get it done, especially if you're going to do things like replating. Now, you can take a whole bucket of nuts and bolts from the car and wire wheel them or tumble them in a tumbler, and then take them to your local plating shop and have them zinc plated. They'll come back, they'll look absolutely beautiful and great, but there's about 1,600 different types of nuts and bolts having to do with links. Is it threaded all the way? Is it threaded part way? Oh my gosh. But you've got your cell phone, right? You've got your cell phone. So take lots and lots and lots and lots of pictures. And also, the next handiest thing that you can have, the workshop manual is the Bible, but the next handiest thing is the factory parts manual. I've got the AKD 3227 here for the MGB, let me just find a nice big picture here. But here's a picture having to do with the braking system, and it is just so detailed. Now these are the same pictures that Moss uses, but Moss's are 2 inches across, and this thing is 11. So the workshop, the factory parts list is so important to have, so you can see which way does the bolt go. You know, when I get down underneath a MGB front suspension or an A or T type, and I look at the bolts and nuts and the A-arms, the bolt is supposed to come from the backside and the nut's supposed to be on the outside. It doesn't make any difference. It works just the same one way or the other, but one way is correct. So it's looking at these parts manuals that tell you in such wonderful detail. Now that AKD 3227 is good on the MGB only up through about 1965. Then there's a different set of parts books that come in, and they aren't quite as good. They aren't quite as detailed as the earlier ones. But even a 1980 MGB underneath is so much like the earlier cars. The front suspension's all the same. The rear suspension's almost all the same. That you can use those parts manuals for originality and just to help you see which way things go. And just because you've taken something apart and taken a lot of pictures doesn't mean that that's the way it goes back together. You know, so it's very, very helpful. So arm yourself with the parts manuals, order up all the parts to begin with, have a nice workshop to work, paint the walls white, go out and spend $150 and buy a whole bunch of LED lights so that you can paint the floor. So when you drop something, you can actually find it. Get some racks so you can take things off and put things on racks. You want to do your best to separate your clean area from your dirty area. If you're working in your garage, it's hard to do. That means you just got to clean up a little more often. But what you don't want to do is rebuild your seats. Your seats are beautiful. You've gone crazy and bought a leather seat for a 1980 MGB. Okay, and so it's kind of protected, you know. I mean, you know, you haven't wrapped it quite thoroughly, and then you're over there on a wire wheel, spinning dust and corrosion and rust off of bolts, and that all gets up onto those brand new seats. No. So anyway, do your best to seal everything as you go and keep your workshop clean as you go, and have a nice bright workshop so it's a pleasant place to go. I make a case that you don't need a chair. You don't need to sit down while you're doing anything. Stand up, get a lot more done. And try to keep yourself organized and clean up at the end of each day. And I'm making it sound like this is the way that I've done it in the past. And sometimes I have, but sometimes I haven't either. So one of the fastest total restorations that I ever saw, I was ever involved with, was my own 1962 MGA. And we took that apart in January, real early January, and I had it back together in May. We did everything. The body, the interior, the dash, the engine, the heater motor, the wiper motor, the differential, you name it, I did it. But that was 5 months. It was extremely quick. That's before kids, and when I was still, I still got up in the morning and had lots of energy all day. So it probably isn't the same. Both Caroline and I worked on that car for maybe 4 hours every day. We got to the shop early and just worked on my car, and just having the whole shop available and all the tools that were there made it really handy. I had somebody else paint it, somebody else put the seats together. I didn't do every single part of it myself, but that's one of the fastest ones that I've ever seen. It came out pretty nicely. I'm still driving it. I mean, I've had the engine apart, I don't know, 6 times since then. That was 1980. So but I haven't had the interior apart except once since then. And it needs an interior now. Actually, it needs a lot more than that. It's been in its restored state for 42 years. I won one time at a NAMGAR event. I don't remember where. I got to be in premier class the next year, but there ain't nothing premier left about my MGA. It's just a driver now. Anyway, about restoration. When you go into it, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to work on it every day. You know, you're not. You can't. One of those days is Christmas. One of those days is Thanksgiving. You kidding me? And you go, well, I'm working on it absolutely, you know, every Tuesday night. No, you won't do that either. And your interest is gonna rise and fall throughout the project. You're actually going to be really motivated in the beginning. Of course, you've just spent, you know, $8,000 on new parts or $4,000 on new parts, and whoever else is in charge of the checkbook is going to make sure you stay interested in it for a while. But then things come up, things change at work, things change in family. My gosh, your boss says, hey, guess what? You've been promoted. You're moving to Houston, Texas. And now the car, which is half apart, but it's all the half that's done is all done and is movable, and it isn't just a pile of nuts and bolts. So all kinds of things can happen. One of the dangers that happens is your demand for quality. And what will often happen, I saw happen a lot, is, you know, people start off and they're going to make the nicest car in the world, and they work and they work and they work, and it's just beautiful, but it's like nothing's getting done. If I'm going to drive this before I'm 82, I'm going to have to speed it up a little bit. And then you get sort of towards the end, and then your quality falls and falls and falls. And so while the drive shaft and the inside of the gearbox is perfect and inside of the engine is all nice and everything, it turns out that maybe the paint isn't so great, or the attention to detail on final assembly isn't great. And that's all that you see, you know? So it's really, really frustrating to lose your demand for quality. There is, however, the corollary, and that is your demand for quality increases. And it finally gets to the point where you can't do anything more on your car because you can't do it as well as you think it should be done. So I've seen all kinds of combinations. We used to get a lot of restoration work at the shop. Some of it was very rarely just do the whole thing. Just, you know, here's the car and here's a checkbook. My God, you can blow through $100,000. You know, and the car isn't worth it. But my last ex-wife, Lynn, she said, I don't get it. Why would someone spend $100,000 on an MGB that's only worth $15,000? I'd say, well, Lynn, do you know anyone who owns a cat? No, cats aren't worth anything, you know, and it's if you put one down, by the time you get home after burying it, you'll pass a cardboard sign that says free kittens. So it doesn't have much, kitty cat doesn't have much long-term value. But people just get excited. So what we'd see, rarely did we see these full, you know, total restorations. What we more likely saw was, we're in a jam, we've been working on this for 3 years, it still doesn't run, just make it run and stop. Just make it run and stop and get the dash into place. And we'll go ahead and trim out the rest of the exterior and the interior, but just get us over this hump. Okay, so we do those. Or sometimes somebody just gotten to a point where they burned out and they said, I just can't get it. I can't get it done. And we take it as it was and finish the whole job out. But those are expensive operations. You got to have a real healthy checkbook to be able to call on someone else to come out and help you do that kind of assembly. However, all the way through the project, there are things you cannot do. You can't balance a drive shaft in your own home. I say that, and somebody will come on later and go, "Well, I did," but generally speaking, there's stuff you just don't do yourself. The clocks, the speedo and tack and stuff like that, you'd send it out to somebody or send the shocks out to have those done. Hire someone to paint the car, maybe hire someone to stitch up the seats or fit the seats correctly. Maybe hire somebody to put a cover on the dashboard. How about grind the crankshaft or do a valve job? I mean, all those things are possible to do yourself. I know people who have the equipment and do that kind of stuff themselves, but that's just a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the number of people out there who are trying to do restorations. So you've got to balance out what you're going to do yourself and what you're going to have done, hired done. So sit down, make a list of what you got to do, break it into as many little sections as you can. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. People have already done this. There's all kinds of information out there about the pitfalls and the correct routes to follow. So anyway, those are my comments. I don't want to, good grief, talk here for half an hour. So, and I know we got some stuff up here for on chat. So let me, oh my gosh, yes, we got lots of chat here. So I'm gonna come over here. Kelvin Dodd from Moss Motors says hi to everybody. Kelvin, nice to have you on. From Tom C to everybody, question about a gold seal engine. I have one, BHM 1111U. Anyway, the gold seal engines were factory engines. You could buy engines from Sears back in the day of the T-type. You could buy rebuilt engine from Sears and Roebuck. But gold seal engines, this one has to do with a U, which means center gear change, and an AD on the alphanumeric designation. And I do have a breakdown of gold seal engines beginning with 48G, but I don't have the BHM, which sounds like a later series. If Calvin's on here, he probably knows all that kind of stuff. But I just offhand, I don't know how to translate the AD, Tom, from the U means center gear change, but I don't know what the AD is. I just don't know.
It's stamped right below the plate. It's on the plate right below the number.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't mean the year of our Lord. It's not Latin for that, because I don't think they made MGs in BC.
Well, yeah, but now it's a CE anyway. Yeah, Anno Domini has been replaced by Common Era. So
Okay.
I'm going to grab my book just a second.
While he's doing that, Tom, what is this motor, this gold seal? Is it a T series?
No, it's a MGB GT.
Thanks.
And it's originally from someone found it in a field east of Portland, Oregon. And they, yeah, it was sitting in the field.
Weird stuff comes from.
Yeah, I just found the owner a couple of days ago. He sold the engine to someone else who restored the car that I bought this year. And I've gone on a couple of sites looking for help, and I've gone into, as you can see, the so-called expert, and he has a designation for BHM 111, but I didn't know what the U was until John mentioned it, And I guess 92025 is the job number. But I don't know.
That would be the engine number itself, yeah. So
Yeah.
the AD shows up under 16 engine for commercial vehicles. But that's the only place that I see AD. And remember, this is a workhorse engine, so there's all kinds of possibilities where it might have come from. And the only other ones that I've got in my tech book, which everybody says, when are you going to reprint it? And it's not tomorrow. I don't know, someday. I only have the 48 Gs for the gold and silver seal replacement engines. So I don't have any information. I don't know what that is. Kelvin Dodd, are you still on? If Kelvin's a good guy to talk to at Moss Motors, he sees a lot of stuff. He gets lots and lots of unusual questions, and he has got a lot of factory resources.
I'm still here. I don't have factory resources, but I've got a good book on the B series. It's a B series book, which is right. Hang on.
Kelvin's the only one who's broadcasting from underneath the vehicle tonight.
Here's engine data.
So
I'll take a look.
Yeah, while Kelvin's hunting for that, we're going to go on to the next one here. Then when Kelvin gets an answer, we can come in. Paul Evans. Where are you from, Paul? You weigh in here. You can keep trying. On a Z.
Balboa Island, California.
Okay. So on a ZB, it appears that the hood air vent has a drain hole. If so, does it drain straight through, or are there bends in the hose? Oh my gosh, that I can't answer. But who else have we got on here tonight? Is a Z-type magnet expert?
I was looking. I couldn't see the outlet. That's a ZB right behind me on the lift.
Okay.
I couldn't see it. I can't remember how that thing was routed. It was pretty straightforward, I think.
Where are you, Kevin?
Yeah.
You can, if you take I know chasing those things, if you take the filament that goes to your weed eater and feed that down those holes, sometimes if they're, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch in diameter, the MGB one's pretty good size. It's like 3/4 of an inch or an inch. So that it's not necessary there, but I don't know. I'm sorry that I haven't got an answer, but we'll wait. Maybe somebody will come up with an answer and somebody can come in later on.
Let me ask you a real quick follow-up on that parts manual. With the parts manual for the ZB, would that have diagrams of how those hoses?
Absolutely. It would show you the part. It would show you the part. Absolutely, it would. And
Where
it
can I
is,
get?
MG Owners Club in Swansea, in England. MG Owners Club. They have all the parts manuals on CDs. I don't know if they got the Z types on CDs or not. You can advertise for them or look for them on eBay Motors. Original, like an MGA twin cam, original factory parts manual probably sells for $150. I'm just guessing. It's a lot, and MGB ones are less. Magnets, I don't know, supply and demand. You'd think there are a lot more manuals out there than there are people who want them. You wouldn't think they'd be very much, but anyway, that's about it. That's eBay is about the best place to go for it. So.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Barry from Florida, we're up to 152 people now. Barry from Florida, what's the weather like in Florida, Barry?
Hi, John.
Hey.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. Finished, did 18 holes of golf today, Tarpon Springs. It's perfect.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's in marked contrast to here. But Barry can only talk for about 2 minutes because he's got a Triumph and not an MG. So anyway,
Yep.
that's what he's weighed in. Mind if a TR6 owner listens. It's like, hey, it's just great. It's just great. A lot of the stuff, especially tuning, those kinds of things, all those things are a lot. Well, not all those things, but so many of those things are the same. So, okay, thanks a lot, Barry. Pat G to everybody. Restoration, what's the correct sequence? Pat G. Weigh in here. Tell us where you're from, and tell me the kind of car you've got.
Hi, John. I'm in El Cajon outside of San Diego. The
Okay.
weather is perfect again today, although I might have to put a sweater on tonight.
Oh my.
Not a cloud in the sky today. It was beautiful, perfect, gorgeous. Cars, I have 5 MGs, so I have 2 TDs, an MGA, and 2 Bs.
Okay. So the difference between the cars with frames and the cars that are monocoque is really different when it comes to restoration. If you're going to restore a car like an MGB and you want to have it look as good on the bottom as it does on the top, look as good or better than it did when it left the factory, then you've got to strip it all the way down, have it painted, and then when it comes back from the paint shop, be ready to put everything back onto the car. Therefore, you don't do everything as it comes out. You hold off, and they're great big sections: front suspension, rear suspension, engine, gearbox. It'll be at the paint shop a lot longer than the paint shop tells you in the beginning. My experience. And during that time that they're struggling with it and arguing with you about the price again, then you've got time to get all those other components done. Now that's in marked contrast to an MGA or a T-type. Those, you get the body, you go round and round and round and just rebuilding everything as you go. But you get down to the point where you can pull the body off the frame. And an MGA, you got to build the body partly on the frame because that's where it fits. That's where it's got to fit. The doors are critical. Everything is predicated on the position of the doors. And you get the body ready to go to the paint shop, and you still got the chassis. So while the body's out at the paint shop, you can go ahead and get the chassis done. Front suspension, rear suspension, engine, gearbox, drive shaft. You can go out and drive the chassis. You can drive around.
I've seen your video of you doing that, John.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's helpful for a couple of reasons. One, you make sure that yes, second gear synchro does work, that it does run and drive, and it gives you a boost. It's like, yes. Then when the body comes back from the paint shop, and MGAs are the most difficult, most complicated, most expensive of all the British cars I know. They're just a horror because there's hardly a straight line on it. Everything is a compound curve. Anyway, when the body comes back, then the chassis by this time is all done and is covered in plastic in the corner, and you put the frame on sawhorses and trim out the frame. You put the dash in and all the wiring on the firewall, and put in the case of an MGA, put the rear fenders on, you put the front fenders on. I mean, you can get the doors are all on, they open and close, you can get some of the interior in. And then when it gets to the point where you can't get any more done, then you get like 6 of your big friends that come over and pick it up and walk it over and very gingerly lower it onto the frame. And there's a little more to it than that, but not much. And then put in the radiator and the master cylinder and go out and drive it. So in the case of the MGA, the last, and this is so important, the last thing that you install on an MGA, absolutely the last item, is the grill. Because there's a modern way to fit the grill so you can get the grill out. But oh boy, if that grill jams, then it's then you got to hunt for another grill again. I mean, it's just because you wreck the grill trying to go through it. Bs don't seem to have that problem, and T-types, more of the problems getting it to latch rather than getting it to unlatch.
Mhm.
So anyway, those are just some real quick comments. So
Thanks, John. The guys were talking about manuals. Another website is bookfinder.com.
okay,
They search hundreds of used bookstores, put their inventories on the website. So I found all kinds of oddball MG stuff on there.
Book Finder, and I've used Abe Books and Alibris.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of times they'll direct you to Abe Books or Alibris, but they even search bookstores in England. So
Okay, thank you. I've written that down. That's very handy. Thank you.
neat tool. Yeah.
John, can I jump in with a comment?
Thanks, John.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Pat.
Talking about order of operations and putting the car together, I'm closing in on my midget restorations, and this book, Restoring Sprites and Midgets, has been pretty helpful. And one thing is he's got a nice one-page list of the order he recommends for putting everything together. And this guy is not always right. He's made a few mistakes, but I looked at it when I started, and I had gotten as far as my head and saying, start with the brake lines because everything else is going to get in the way. And I looked at his page and he said pedal box and then brake lines are first. And then the rest of the order, you got a lot of flexibility, but it's a nice list. And I imagine it would be about the same for MGBs.
That's what I mean to say is that you've got to arm yourself. I just bought a not a complete MG book selection, and they weren't technical. They were all the coffee table books from the widow, one of my customers. I paid her $1,500 for, I don't know, 200 books. But that book was in there, and I already had a whole lot of the books but it just made it easier to make a one-stop shopping. And now I got multiple copies of a lot of books, but there were a lot of books he had that I didn't. Anyway, yes, you have to arm yourself with as much information. Information's power. And there's a lot of books about building the cars. And if you just look at a picture of the factory and look at what they installed on the trim deck and pushing them down the line, what parts they added when, it's the same sequence that you want to use. Yes. And you can also reverse engineer if you're taking the car apart one part at a time. The reassembly is merely reverse this procedure. So anyway, thanks very much, Peter. Where are you from? What's the weather?
I'm in Syracuse. It's cold. We got a little bit of snow left on the ground from a storm last week. We're the snowiest city in the lower 48.
Okay. All right. Okay, from Maurice Emery, I missed last week. Quick recap on causes of a squealing disc brake. In this case, a left squealing rear brake. And we had about 100 reasons, but everybody came down to these brake pads. And I don't have my notes in front of me, so I can't tell you what the problem is. But of course, the reason the brakes squeal is because they're vibrating. And they're vibrating because either that's not being dampened enough by having goo, some kind of goo, fabric, gel, something or other on the backside of the brake pad, or the brake pads tend to squeal. Maurice, if you want to send me a note, I've got well, actually, I have yet to put that one back up. You got to wade through an hour and a half of everybody talking about brakes, but I don't have that one up on YouTube yet. So Maurice, are you still here?
I am.
Okay. All right, so I'll get that up on YouTube. I just can't remember the name of the I can't remember the name of the brake pads. Everybody, I think they're made by TRW, but I can't think of what it is. But they bought. Bob said I think he bought it at Pep Boys or something, and they're guaranteed for life. So all you have to do is
AutoZone,
AutoZone.
Duralast, guaranteed for life. They wear out, you
Duralast.
get another. Yeah.
So
They also have
anyway,
Duralast Gold, which is more expensive, but once you buy a set of pads, you don't have to buy another set.
anyway, that was Bob and Gloria's. I've just written that down so I can remember. Anyway, that's their experience having tried a bunch of different brake pads. So
Can I add a word of caution? We were talking about shop manuals, and I was using Haynes manuals, and they got some things wrong, like the sprocket for the camshaft. They have you put it on 180 degrees off. I knew that, so I I knew not to listen to them, but they did get a couple things wrong. For the most part, they're pretty simple to understand, but you got to be cautious. You have to know what you're doing, I think.
well, the factory workshop manuals are great. I mean, they are the bottom line. They are the go-to, absolutely. But when you get into a jam, it says use special tool 18G 2111. What are you going to do? So you go back in section Q and you look at special tool 18G 2111 and you figure out how you can fashion that out of a couple of washers, a hose clamp, pair of vice grips, and a hammer, you know, and do the best you can. So, yeah. So what's the weather where you are in Ohio today, Bob?
It's cold, and the snow's about melted. We're supposed to get another inch or so, but it's a sad day. A couple days ago, it was a really sad day because I saw them put salt down. So
No.
my driving days are done for the year.
Yes.
Yeah, I was driving to Lansing, Michigan for this Michigan State ball game that I only go to as there's a whole group of us that go in memory of my father who never missed a game. And we were following a salt truck, saw that, you know, looked like 50 pounds of salt going out of the back of the truck, you know, in 5 seconds. So yeah. Oh my gosh. So our next question is from Ruth Arnold from the greater Washington, D.C. area. My 74.5 BGT has recently developed a problem, which I think is caused by a failing fuel pump. Driving her, she'll suddenly seem to be dying as if running out of gas, but after a while, it'll be fine again. This has happened a couple of times. You think I'm on the right track by replacing the fuel pump, which could be 20 plus years old. Generally speaking, yes. What happens is the fuel pump stops working, at least intermittently, and then the second carburetor in the fuel supply runs out of gasoline first. And so the car runs kind of crappy, and then all of a sudden it runs again just perfectly. Well, a condenser doesn't do that. A plugged fuel filter doesn't do that. Just a failing fuel pump does that. So that's probably it. If your car's quitting or acting erratically, you always watch the tachometer. If the tachometer needle's bouncing around, then it lets you know there's a problem in the primary side of the ignition circuit, which is the distributor and the primary side of the coil. It won't register any problem if you got problems with a cap or wires or spark plugs. It won't show up in the tach, but it does like that. So you can make a case for getting another pump. There are two types of pumps. There are the old-fashioned points pumps that'll always work if you hit it. And there's the new electronic ones that when they fail, you're dead in the water, like Pertronics. They don't fail very much, but I go for points all the time. There are people who rebuild fuel pumps. Tom Ball in Akron, Ohio, rebuilds fuel pumps. And just offhand, they're probably nicer than the factory pumps because he's putting them together. He's a jeweler and he puts them together very, very cautiously and tests them before they go out the door. So it's not a factory production operation. So in any case, with the new pumps, you're supposed to, just like the control boxes, you're supposed to clean the points before you start using them. But anyway, Ruth, what's the weather like there?
Well, thank you for that valuable information. Actually, I already got the new pump. I ordered it from Moss, and they appear only now to offer the electronic one. And one of my fellow MG Car Club friends sort of suggested that I should get that. So I ordered it and was somewhat surprised to find the price of it. I realize now that I had a catalogue of theirs from 2017 and the price was about half what it is now. But anyway, I have it. But now I'm beginning to think maybe I should not use it. What do you think? I should just go ahead and put it in and hope for the best?
Well, the problem with the electronic pump is that when it fails, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
Everyone has experienced beating on that angled platform behind the passenger seat, or worse, getting out of the car and tunking the fuel pump, and then tick, 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 it pops right up.
Yeah.
Another cheap trick is to take the key. Take your key and turn it off and on, off and on, off and on. And I tell people, I say that surges electricity through the points. I'm not sure what happens, really. I mean, I'm not an electronic.
So where could I get hold of what was the name of the guy who you said is the guy who rebuilds them?
Tom Ball, B-A-L-L.
Okay.
Let me pull out my handy device here. And just come up with a phone number.
Okay, great.
He's in Akron, Ohio, and Tom Ball's phone number is 330 666 2642.
Oh, great. Okay, that's wonderful. I think I'll give him a call.
Okay.
And then I can just return that one to Moss.
Hey, John.
Also,
I did look at the gauges and everything seemed to be fine. But it was just like any minute now she's going to come to a complete stop. She'd go about 25 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden everything was fine again.
Yeah.
So you seems like that's what it was. But thank you. That's very, very, very helpful. Thank you. The weather here is cold, mostly sunny, but with extremely cold, gusty winds. But other than that, and we're keeping our fingers crossed it'll continue Saturday, because here in Alexandria we have the annual Christmas parade, which I was planning to drive in, but will not now be doing that. But
you don't go faster than 25, right?
No, but I thought it would be somewhat embarrassing to come to a grinding halt halfway through the parade,
Yeah.
So I decided on balance probably better not. But there will be other people there, so I will go and make encouraging noises and take photos, and so we'll have a good time.
Great.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Fred Horner, you were going to weigh in with something.
Yeah, John, I just want to mention that Rimmer Brothers is selling the mechanical pumps, and they're only about $100.
Okay.
And there's
So
Lucas.
That's a direct order
Excuse me,
from England.
Yeah.
Rimmer,
Yeah,
R-I-M-M-E-R, was that rimmer.co.uk or something?
Rimmerbrothers.com. Rimmerbrothers.com.
Okay. All right. Fred, thank you. That's very kind. Thank you.
Hey, John,
Yes.
it's Jim.
Hey, Jim.
We had a situation with a fuel pump recently, and Tom actually rebuilt it. We put a different pump on and then had Tom rebuild it, put it on, and it was intermittent, and it still stayed intermittent. And it was the ground wire at the license plate.
Yes. Yep, you got to have power and you've got to have ground. And the power usually isn't the problem. But I remember had a car in the shop one time. I was standing next to it and it was idling. And I looked down because it seemed as though the side marker lights at the rear had just winked. And I was watching it as is idling, and another 10 seconds goes by, and the side markers and the taillights winked. And that's the pump working and hunting for a ground and grounding through all those filaments. So as long as the lights aren't on, it can find enough ground. And of course, it was that great big loose ring terminal at the back. So yes, thank you very much, Jim. And somebody else is going to weigh in also.
Well, I just want to say that in the interim, if she wants to, there are some low price, low pressure pumps that like Fossey or something that you can put in and I've had one in for a couple of years on my MGB and it's been fine, but I want to go back to the SU eventually.
The Glenn from Glenn's MG service, I'm not sure how Glenn's doing. He's been pretty sick here for a couple of weeks longer. Glenn uses Facet, F-A-C-I-T-E-T, Facet fuel pumps. They're quiet. Some aftermarket pumps go, eh. It's like, that's no fun. But the Facet pumps are inexpensive. I think Moss is selling them. They're $30 or $40 or something. And they're quiet. They're easy to install. They're not original. So again, you got form and function. I mean, if you don't have any function, then screw the form at least for a while, put in something else. But Facet is a real nice replacement pump. But it also needs power and a ground. So thanks very much to Jim Pastore. That's very critical to make sure. Whenever we installed a fuel pump at my shop, we always installed it with an extra ground. We took one of the screws out from underneath the solenoid, put a ring terminal on that with a long black wire with another ring terminal on that, and hooked it to something else underneath the car. Just make absolutely sure you've got a good ground. So, okay.
John, I carry a Facet. I carry a Facet fuel pump as a spare, just in case.
Okay.
And you hook up.
John,
I enjoy the ticking though.
You can put the Facet pumps in series.
Yes.
With the SUs, you can have 2 fuel pumps.
Yep, you can
hide that Facet.
You can carry it with hoses and put it on right underneath the bonnet with alligator clips. I've seen all kinds of stuff, that people have used. So yes. Okay, from Greg Newton. Hi, John and everyone. I'm replacing the brake master cylinder on my 74 BGT. There's a small spring and a plastic cup inside of the rearmost fluid feed. There's one of those on both of those. Is there anything special about the installation of that spring and cup? Also, I'm trying to bench bleed it before I put it in the car, and the front one just pushes and sucks fluid back in, and I'm getting no fluid from the rear. Okay, so it's a good thing they're bench bleeding it because this is the time to find out, but there's supposed to be a one-way valve, a spring and a valve on both of those. And they're designed to hold a little bit of pressure in the system. So you have to take a look at the cup and the little copper band, but you get those out of the old master cylinder and put them into the new master cylinder. Who knows why they don't come with them? It's just, oh my gosh. So you've got to install those. The spring goes in first, and then the valve. And if you take a look at it, you'll see sort of how it works. They both have to be in place. So if you put your finger over the ends, and have your you holding it in the vise, and you're bleeding it, you can use, I suppose you can use two fingers on the outlet and a screwdriver in the front and push the front of it, but get it to bleed a couple of times. That's important. So, Greg, are you on? You here?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. So Anyway, are you from San Diego?
I am actually. I'm a whole whopping maybe 20 miles from Pat G. So we enjoyed the same 78-degree day today.
Hey, all right. You used to be from Military Road in Detroit?
That is correct, from Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Right. All right. Okay. I remember when you guys used to come to the summer parties.
Yeah,
Long
it's
time-
the same car I'm trying to get going again.
Oh my gosh. Hey, great, great. Okay, well, anyway, yeah, make sure that you're bleeding it on the bench correctly. I don't have a picture of that real handy right now. But if you want to send me an email, I'll send you a picture back
No,
of
no,
what that should look like. But
The little plastic cup kind of really just fits in the spring one way, right?
correct,
Okay, and then that just goes in and then you just tighten it down?
correct.
Perfect.
And there's one in the front and the rear. So,
Okay, I didn't transfer the one in the front, but I did do the one in the rear.
okay.
And of course, when I pulled it apart, it fell out. So I was like, I think
Yeah.
it goes like this, right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. All right. Good luck. All right. So now we got Mr. Verville. I have a 74B that was in restoration. It was soda blasted and then in storage. And then it needed to be taken out and brought to other places. Now outside in the weather, it now has a fine patina of horrible rust. Is there a way of covering the rust in some sort of encapsulating paint, or do I need to blast it again? Well, I would say, I'm not a paint and body guy, but I would say you need to blast it again, because rust is like cancer. And if you leave it there, all it does is continue as much as you try to encapsulate it. So we got any body guys here? I mean, I'm sure that this is the case. And of course, it's only the outside of the car that shows, but oh my gosh, if you had it blasted once, you can have it blasted again. The nice thing about soda blasting is that you can get rid of all the media. When you have it sandblasted, you cannot get rid of all the sand. There's always sand inside the car. You just can never get rid of all of it. It always stays there. There were some people that were dipping cars. They had huge tanks. It was some sort of company that set up different operations around. Anyway, you could have the car dipped, and then you'd have to use seam sealer on all the seams because it popped all the seam sealers. But that was great stuff because it got down inside and outside, and I don't know, it's caustic soda or something or other. But do we have any paint people on? And Mr. Verville, where are you and what's the weather like where you are? But he's not here anymore. So anyway, yeah, it needs to be blasted again.
Have you had any success using that POR 15?
Well, paint over rust, that's okay on frame stuff, but not on the outside of a car. So.
Yeah. Hey, John.
Yes.
So with the soda, I mean, if it's a light surface layer, I would just sand it by hand or with the DA. I wouldn't use POR 15 or any kind of chemical treatment on it. You could Tamco paint, makes a really incredible epoxy primer that will work. That'll stick to rust that's like less than a dime.
Okay.
And they say it lasts 20 plus years, so that'll work.
Okay. All right.
Hey, John.
Yes.
On your soda blast, and if you go ahead and soda blast your vehicles where if you don't get all that soda out of there and you go to epoxy primer it won't stick. It'll actually work against it on there. For the rust on the body, the surface rust, like you say, go ahead and do that again. But there is a product, and I cannot think of it. It comes in a green bottle. You can spray it on, wipe it off with the water and stuff. It'll help keep that rust from coming on there till you want to go ahead and get at that, do your body work or your paint work on that. You can wash it off, They had
Well,
to spray on-
there are phosphorus compounds that you
Yeah,
can
yes.
buy, that rust the metal, not with oxygen, but they rust it with phosphorus, if that makes any sense. So that's,
Metal plate.
yeah.
Best thing to do is go over into Napa and you can ask about something to stop the rust or remove the rust on the bodies. It comes in a green bottle, and I can't think of it right now.
You're probably thinking of OSFO. I
Correct.
just posted a link to it. That'll actually turn light surface rust and make it paintable, and it'll stop it in its tracks. I've known people who have taken and gotten full bodies stripped, and then of course they will rust very quickly depending on the humidity, have coated the entire car. If they weren't going to like prime it immediately to prevent rust, they coated it in OSFO, because then that'll wash off with like lacquer thinner and clean off too. So
Yeah, we did some Model A fenders way back in the 70s, and my mentor, Ray Delafield, we had him hanging up in his barn, his body shop. It was half barn, the other half, and storage, and the other half was his body shop. And after he must have had him up there for about 10 years hanging there. The only rust that had on that fender is where he had touched it with a bare hand. Whenever you handle that sheet metal, you should always be wearing gloves. Never touch your bare hands, because you leave your oil on there, and that's where the rust will go.
Interesting.
Okay, so we've got this phosphorus OSFO stuff to put on there. We've got this the catalytic primer that encapsulates the rust. So there's lots of options here. But on the outside of the car, where you actually see it, seems to me that you ought to DA it or something or other, and get mechanically remove as much of the rust as possible. So,
Just two quick tips to add to that.
yes.
Instead of OSFO, you can go to Home Depot and get concrete etch. It's the same stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, concrete etch. Check out the data sheet on it. It's basically the same stuff. Works great. I've used it. But you have to be sure to check your data sheet from your primer company, like the Tamco primer that I mentioned earlier. It will not stick if you have used phosphorus-based solution on your metal. So
yeah, there's paint isn't as easy as it used to be, but paint's a lot better. You just can't mix and match stuff. So yeah, in Home Depot came up 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks, 2 times or 3 times ago, when we were talking about preparing the cars for storage. For peppermint, everyone was keen on using peppermint to keep the little rodents away. And someone said, "Oh, you can buy that out at Home Depot." That's my home away from home. I haven't looked for it yet. Okay, well, let's move on here. Maurice, Anne-Marie, remind us how to donate. Well, it's about time that I got to say something anyway. So go on my website, universitymotorsltd.com. Universitymotors.com gets you into a used car lot in Missoula, Montana. That's not the one you want. Universitymotorsltd.com, and right on the front page, there's a yellow button there that says PayPal, help John afford his retirement, something like that. So you can make your contribution there. I just contributed to Wikipedia today. You get those generalized mailers that come out and say, "Come on, we can't do this for free." They've got staff. I mean, it's a huge, that's huge operations. So does Sky Knott with MG Experience. He's got a contribution page on there too. So you can make a one-time or an occasional one when you think about it, or you can go on there and put down, send $5 every month or 50, whatever, there's lots of different options you can do through PayPal. Anyway, Maurice, you're on Maui, so the weather is always lovely. That's what he has to say there. So
True statement. And I've already donated, so thank you for that.
Hey, you're very kind. Thanks. Okay, from Fred Conti, recently bought a good-looking 61 MGA with 44,000 on the odometer, whatever that means. But it appears that her beauty is only skin deep. She has significant rot on the inside of the frame, and both inside sills are gone. Contemplating removing the fenders and repairing, replacing the inside sills, whatever. Am I crazy? So, Fred, are you on? We'll wait for a minute here and see. Oh, Fred's on, but you're not, you got to unmute yourself. Try the space bar. Hold the space bar down, Fred. There you go. There we go. Okay. So the most difficult car to work on is the MGA. It's just a horror. So one thing that you don't want to do is remove the body from the frame until you've got some of the welding done and in place. To get all the welding done, you've got to take the body off the frame if you're going to do it correctly. So you can buy the sheet pieces. Moss sells them. Cecilia's got them. I think Swamp Road, Doylestown, PA. He's got them. The interior pieces to help hold the floor and everything. But when you start taking it apart, it is a rusty mess. It really is. And everything on that MGA is predicated by the position of the door. So you'd never take the door off the car. But if you do, and when you have to, drill holes, take an 1/8-inch drill bit and drill through the hinge and into the body, make 2 holes so that all you need is a couple of nails, and you can get the hinge back into the original spot. But once the door fits, then you can begin to align the bottom stuff. We used to have trouble with the sills that we purchased. Sometimes they weren't bent right, and so you'd put them up against the car, and it's like, this doesn't work. So you'd have to cut the brand new sills and fiddle with them, but it was easier to do that than start with just a plain piece of sheet metal. But
yeah. I can tell that the inside sill is completely rotted away, and I have this. I'm tempted to take the front and rear fenders off of one side so I can see what's going on. One of the problems is, to compensate for not having the inside sill, they welded the outside rocker to the front and rear fenders. So I'm going to have to do some damage to a very nice paint job on this thing. It looks great from the out. It runs like the top, but it clearly needs serious work.
Well, you got form and function, right? So the function there? Does it look good? Do the doors close?
Yeah. The gaps aren't great, but they close.
Okay. So it works. So consider that. But if you do make the next step, oh my gosh, Carl Heidemann, I call him my associate. He worked for me when he was in college, and he's got a shop over in Holland, Michigan. He decided he was going to do MGA bodies. That was just his fantasy. So he made up all the jigs, and he was down to where, you could pay him maybe 20 grand, maybe more, to just fit the body. And then take it away and get somebody else to paint it. And he sold all his jigs and fixtures to Paul Deershaw at Sports Car Craftsman in Arvada, Colorado. So Paul does all that work too, but it is a huge project. Carl, first of all, Carl has got real anal about, how well the stuff should all fit. But he told me, he said, I'd have the front fender on and off a dozen times, fitting, tweaking, bending, rolling, adding some metal here, on and off a dozen times. I mean, you got to be really set for a big project if you're gonna do that, so. Or find somebody who does, you haul it out to Paul Dershow's, he'll do it. He won't do it probably. Those guys, all those shops, all the repair shops are busy beyond belief. So,
Yeah. Well, I've not made the decision and it's going to take me a while to get there. I think if I took the fender off, I would at least see what I've got to deal with in terms of the rot underneath there.
well,
I
if you
know
just-
where the rot is on the frame. It's on the inside of the box member. And the only way to repair that is to get the body off.
Yes. And then
And
there'll
I
be
can't
rot-
take the body off until I get the inside sill and the doors to all be integral and in a type of, like a unibody before I can lift it off the frame. So I'm
Correct, or else you distort it to a point where it becomes
right.
really
never get it
difficult,
back.
really
Yeah.
difficult, yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, well, good, where are you?
I'm in Mystic, Connecticut.
So it's cold, but no snow?
Cold and gray and snow flurry and beautiful southern New England weather.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Hey, John.
yes,
So you might want to check out Barney Gaylord's website, MG
Thank you.
Guru. He's got pages and pages and pages on the MGA and taking it apart and putting it back together.
thank you
Yeah,
very much.
I've read most of them. They're really great.
Barney's usually on, he's probably on tonight. He only usually unmutes himself when he has to, because he's usually sitting in a McDonald's or someplace with a Wi-Fi. But yes, mgaguru.com. Thank you, Dean. Dean's done a bunch of MGAs, and so he's you guys can talk. You know, so I've only watched it. I've never done it myself. I've only ever watched it done out in my own shop. But yeah, it's a task. It's just so difficult to get those things to work right. Oh my gosh.
You can make them perfect if you're taking the car apart and you're doing a paint job. You can make them absolutely unbelievably perfect. I'll put a link. I'll show you what I did.
Okay, so
Great.
down towards the end of the chat section, Rich Stokes is going to stick a note in there.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate
Okay.
it. You too, Dean. Thanks.
All right, now from Greg, who owns a 70 Midget and a 68 MGB. Is there a trick to starting an MGB in the cold, freezing? I've been pulling on the choke and holding the throttle full open for the first 30 seconds of starting. This seems to start the car the quickest. Your car will start instantly in the Arctic as long as the choke drops far enough. So if there's a problem starting the car, it's how far the jets are dropping in the carburetors. They should drop, the jets should drop 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. So if you have to, put your finger on the bottom of the jet, have your associate pull the choke cable out as far as they can, and your jets on both carburetors should drop down 1/4, 3/8 of an inch, a long way. And if it does that, it'll start instantly, okay? It just will. You just need all that extra gasoline to get enough gasoline in there that'll vaporize. And then immediately after it starts, you start to relax the position of the choke. But if the choke is dropped far enough, it will start instantly. That's a fact. So, and are you still here, Greg?
I'm still here.
Okay, where are you?
I'm in Bowmansville, Pennsylvania.
Okay, all right. And what's the weather there?
Today it was beautiful at about 45 degrees and sunny.
Hey, very nice. Very nice. Anyway, try that trick. And if you have to, you got to screw around with the choke cable or the linkage, and oil is your friend, not WD-40, oil. And lubricate, just lubricate everything. so that it moves and glides. And now we got a note on here from Rob Brackett, who's in the greater Grand Rapids area. So there was another shop here in town. There is, for a while yet, another shop here in town besides University Motors. Forrest, of course, Forrest Johnson bought my firm and moved it to Grand Haven and renamed it the Rusty Moose Garage. But there was another place here in town called West Michigan Imports. That was run by Dwayne Bailey. And we had a sort of a loose gentleman's agreement that he'd work on the Triumphs and I'd work on the MGs. I didn't care what he worked on. I just wanted all the MGs. And that worked out well. We had technical seminars a couple of different times. I had, when I was doing technical seminars on Fulton Street, I don't remember on Patterson, but on Fulton, we thought, well, let's expand it a little bit. Let's go out to Triumphs. And I had Dwayne come in and help out. Anyway, Dwayne passed away about 2 weeks ago. I saw him maybe 4 hours before he passed away. I'm not sure he knew I was there. How would you know? But it was very sad. His wife had literally, Sue, had literally dropped dead about 5 or 7 years ago. I mean, she stood up and she fell down and she was dead. It was just instant like that. Dwayne was diagnosed correctly in June, I think, June or July, with these fast-moving cancerous tumors, and that finally took his life. That is Dwayne Bailey. So there's a season for everything, and the Dwayne season is over. He's a real good guy, wonderful competitor. Todd,
hey, John?
Yes.
Can you tell me who is the man that Carl Heidemann sold his jigs to? The name of the company?
Sports Car Craftsman in Arvada, Colorado. It's Paul Deershaw. So that's a mouthful. Deershaw. Paul Deershaw. It's Sports Car Craftsman, Denver, in Arvada. It's a little northwest suburb in the greater Denver area. And he's got a shop. He's got about 10 employees around that. He's been doing this forever. Started and stopped a couple of times, worked for some other people. He's extremely competent. He's got a wonderful shop, and he's got about 200 plus cars out in the yard that if you need something, he'll send it to you that day or the next day. It isn't like ordering a used part from somebody else who 2 weeks after you make your order, you call and say, hey, dude, you're supposed to send me the starter motor. And he says, oh, my wife got sick, or I had to take my dog to the vet, or I can't find a box big enough. Paul's got it in the box and it comes to you instantly. So he's a really good guy. And he is the MGA. He is the MGA guy. Absolutely. I've got a friend in Houston who bought an MGA. It looked great, looked perfect, had the body work all done, went to put it back together, I think he sent the frame extension out maybe to Paul to get the divots in the top so you can properly mount the anti-sway bar up front. And of course the thing's all bent. And so Paul straightens it out and gives it back to him absolutely straight. Well, now of course it doesn't fit the car because the car is bent. And Rich took the car up there to Paul, and it was, it took a while and it was really expensive, but it came back, it's perfect. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, you're very, very welcome. Todd Tweedy, John, he said, I'm starting my MGC Roadster disassembly for paint. And I'm trying to decide on the best paint removal option. Talk to your body shop. Talk to your body shop and ask them what they want you to do. Now, if the car's all apart, you can sandblast it. But if there's one piece left that pivots, one piece left, you're going to get sand in it. Sand in the brakes, sand in the clutch, sand in the engine, sand in the seat slides, sand in the tachometer. We had an MG midget that came in one time, a midget 1500. It had been switched from 1500 back to 1275. So that was kind of bizarre. And there was a line at the bottom of the tack and speedo of white sand that got into, because they got really aggressive at sandblasting it. There was sand in everything. And mechanical things don't like sand. So the usual way is to DA it, dual action, zzz, with a grinder, and it just takes a long, long time. If you use chemical compounds, those are great. Oh my gosh, paint comes off, it's great. And you put the new paint on, it takes the new paint off too. Because you can't get all the old stuff out of there. But talk to your painter, Todd. Talk to your painter and see what he wants you to do, because that's the guy who's got to guarantee his paint job. Are you on? Yeah, Todd?
Yeah, I'm here in sunny Minneapolis.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you've tinkered on this car before, but it's got some rust that popped up in the seam on the back fender and yada, yada, yada. So that one's coming apart, and I actually just picked up a CGT about 2 weeks ago that is in storage until I get done with this one, and then that's going to be my next project. And thank you, Calvin, for just sending this in the mail. So we'll be sending some money your way shortly. But
no, wait, what did he say? Maybe I can send you something, you send me some money too. Okay, all right.
It literally just showed up. My wife brought it in as you guys were talking, so I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, no, I was nosing around. Eastwood's got that contour. It's like a drum sander. It was kind of odd, looking possibly at using something like that. A media blast would be ideal, but they're expensive. So I was kind of all over the place. Wasn't quite sure which way to really go with it. But going back to the gentleman that had the problem with the very light surface rust that popped up, Eastwood does have an after blast prep that once you've blasted something, you wipe this on there and it kind of seals it and keeps it, it etches it and seals it and keeps it from getting that flash rust that pops up. His sounds a little bit nastier just because it's sat outside, but.
Yeah, I think most of that's just that phosphorus, or what the one guy talked about, concrete etch or something. So yeah. It's the phosphorus is the non-oxygen rusting stuff. So.
Right. I did have one other quick question that was on a little later. I throw this in. So on the CGT that I just picked up, the rear leaf springs are pretty shot. I was looking at either just the traditional, I think whether the 7-leaf leaf springs or the parabolics. Any preferences between those?
No, we always had our leaf springs rebuilt by a spring shop, but our spring shop knew what they were doing too. We take them down in batches of 5 sets at a time or something or other, and then we had them sitting on the shelf. There have been in the past, I don't know about today, Calvin could tell us, but there have been problems in the past with some of the rolls at the front of the spring being not parallel or not being at 90 degrees to the spring, and so the springs have got to shift to them, push the axle left or right half an inch or an inch. And then there's been some problems with spring steel. So we always had ours rebuilt, but I would go, I don't know anything about the parabolic. I don't know anything about, there's fiberglass springs. There's all kinds of stuff you can get out there. The most exotic stuff usually comes out of Australia.
I'll check with, I was going to say, I would check with Brandau and see who he's got up here as far as rebuilding. Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't know what they do to them. I just take them down and drop them off in the shop, and there's a great big furnace, and the guy's walking around without shirts. It looks like something out of Dante or something. I don't know what they do, but they get them hot. And if you if they do it wrong, then the car's gonna sit too low or too high, you know, but I took them to spec sheet one time, and I think the guy threw it in the fire for extra fuel. They just sort of seemed to know what they were doing. Calvin, how are the springs now? Are they,
You know, it's one of those things where I hate to admit, but it's an item by item basis.
Okay.
And it is, unless I've actually seen the spring in person and jumped up and down on it, I really can't give a recommendation. Most of the leaf springs we've got are coming in from British Heritage Spring, but they're having similar problems to the old British Spring company, where obviously they grew too fast, too quickly. They've gone to multiple suppliers. So I don't have a single recommendation on springs. I've got a pair of parabolics that I'm going to try on one of my cars. They tend to be a little bit stiffer, a little bit higher spring rate. So you may have to shim the spring to lower the back of the car. And the parabolics do require tube shocks because they don't have the interleaf damping that the regular spring does. But I'd take a look at your original springs, see how they look. If they're not completely sagged at the moment, I'd probably stick with that.
The previous owner did throw tube shocks on, and like I said, I mean, I literally got this car, I dragged it into storage at a relative's house and have done nothing with it over the last 2 weeks, just because it's 2 hours from where I'm at, but it was nice, climate controlled, good place to let it hide for a while. But next time I'm down there, I need to crawl around it some more. Most of the time was spent just kind of going through it. It's a great rust-free car, and looking forward to working on it. But I also have my Roadster that I got to work on too. So,
well, if you want to contact me directly, I'm now going into the warehouse on Wednesdays, and I can take a look. The MGC rear spring is unique, so it's not the same as the MGB spring. So I don't know if they're doing a good job, a bad job, but I can at least take a look at them and look to see if it appears to be that if it appears to have the right height, etc.
Gotcha. Yeah, because the current ride with it, it looks to be lower than it probably should be. You know, that rear wheel is up into that up into the wheel well more than it should be.
Yeah.
If you take a tape measure from the ground through the center of the wheel to the bottom of the chrome strip, it should be the same figure within 1/4 of an inch on all 4 corners.
Yep. Cool. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, say hello to Brandau when you see him.
I will.
Okay, Al Christie, if you're still here, I don't have any sympathy for your driving a GT in the winter. It has a top. I once left Vancouver, BC, heading for Northwest Ontario in a TD at 55 Fahrenheit. I got to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan at -40 or colder. I stopped for warm coffee. The car wouldn't start after, and I put a wrench on the carb, broke off parts, spent 3 days there before anybody could fix it. So anyway, no, 40 below is pretty cold running. Our cars were never meant for that kind of duty. Oh my gosh. Al Christie, are you still on?
I'm here, John.
Oh, okay. All right. And you're still in Canada?
I am. I'm just to show folks, I'm wearing Chris Roop's shirt. Chris was a good MG friend for most of us in the west part of the continent.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I had a customer one time who drove across the state of Ohio when it was, I don't know, -15, -20, -25, something or other. And he said that his engine never hit normal. The temp gauge did not hit normal. He used 1/4 2 of oil coming across to Ohio. He'd never used oil before. And when he got back in Michigan and the temperature warmed up to freezing or something or other. He never had another stitch of trouble with it. But yeah, those are minus, oh my gosh, a TD. The coldest I ever was in my life driving an MG was driving my TD in the summer of 1968 from Fort Knox back up to my hometown of Marshall, Michigan. Oh my God, it was cold. Oh, and it had one of those little heaters, Arnold heaters in it, and it was all plugged up. I didn't know how anything worked then. I didn't know enough to try to flush it out or anything. So I had it turned on, and the lamp, the switch has got a little bulb in it, and it glows. And you could hear the fan down in the heater jingling as it was spinning. Now, if I hadn't had a heater, I wouldn't have been so mad, but I was cold and mad because the heater didn't work. Oh my gosh. So anyway, yeah, Al, I understand what cold weather running is. Gosh. Okay, Bill Califoot, starting to restore my MG 1100. Moss Motors does not have parts for this. Well, sure they do. They got some. Wait. Got to be something in the catalog. Got to be something in one of the catalogs. In the midget catalog, maybe. It's got to have a couple of parts.
I think they probably have some of the engine parts because it's just the 1098. So but once you go below that, it's all new.
So Tony Shoviak, are you on tonight? I haven't seen you on here. Tony's got an 1100, and the Luft, Terry and Carol Luft.
Yeah, I'm on, John.
Okay, so where do you go for parts, Tony, for the 1100?
I've been getting them out of England.
Okay, from where?
Dave Kingsley.
Okay.
He's kind of finicky, though. You have to approach him because sometimes he will not send parts over here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyway, Tony, Bill, you can drop me a note. I'll give you Tony's email.
Okay.
That's all right with you, Tony. And
sure, that's fine.
And you guys can commune. And then there's also Terry and Carol Luft, who are part of the North American MGB register and the 1100 registry, and they'll have ideas too.
Okay.
Just to kick in there, Mini Mania does have some fast moving MG 1100 parts like brake rotors. A source of used parts would be Paul Deershaw, sports car craftsman. He's had a number of the 1100s and the Austin America 1300s, which have a lot of shared components. So he's a good, and he knows the cars pretty well too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
What year is your car, Bill?
It's a 66.
60. That's real early. Okay.
Yeah, 4-door. It's been off the road. It's been off the road for about 40 years. So it was in a small rear end, and the guy decided, I'm just going to throw it in storage, and it's been sitting there for about 40 years. So it'll be fun. In terms of restoration too, John, on what you talked about earlier, the one thing I learned on doing the YB that doesn't really have a manual as to what goes, the order. I'm definitely with the 1100 making a list of as I take things off, because I had many parts putting back on the YB that I went, oh crap, that part has to go on before this. So many things came off and back on again because of that. So making a list as you're taking things off is a good little thing to do, and then just do it reverse, like the manual say.
You might want to consider joining the 1100 Club out of England, or the ADO 16. They're both good resources.
Yeah.
And they'd help you find the parts too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just looked into both of those. So thank you.
Yep.
And then John, I'm in Westmont, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Our temperature and our weather's a roller coaster. So like they say in Chicago, if you don't like it, wait a day. We're supposed to be in the 50s on Wednesday.
Hey.
Yeah, we are too in Waterville, Ohio, near Toledo.
Yeah.
There is a website called kipmotor.com, KIP Motor.
Yep.
It says he's got parts for Sunbeams and Austins and 1100s and all kinds of stuff. I don't know what he's got, but KIPmotor.com.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Kip's out of Dallas, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And just to add another little story about restorations, there is the rule of 3. It takes 3 times as long, and it costs 3 times as much. And it takes 3 times as long because every part you put on, you have to put on at least 3 times. Because you put it on and then you go, oh shit, I can't put that on until I've got the brake cable in. So you take the part off and put the brake cable in, and then you go, oh, I can't put the I can't put the brake line in until I've got the other thing. So yeah, it's there's a rule of 3. So
did you have eyes in my garage when I was doing the YB? That's exactly what it was.
I believe that. So okay.
Thanks, guys.
Gil Dupre says take photos. This must have been from pretty early on when we were talking about this stuff, but lots of photos. It used to be photos were harder to take back in the days of silver nitrate, but now you can take 1 million photos. It's really easy. So Rich Stokes has weighed in here and he says, I had a very successful year restoring much of the mechanicals on my A. I was also able to complete a new paint job on the rear. The front is waiting on warmer weather. So along these lines, I need your words of wisdom on pulling out the dashboard for a repaint. There are tons of wires that just love to short out if you do anything wrong. So Rich, are you still on?
I am.
Yeah, it's, well, obviously you got the battery disconnected, right? So
I learned to do that.
You take the steering column out first so that you can actually drop the dash. I mean, the steering column comes out in a jiff. And if you can't get the U-joint apart, if you can't, then at least then take the steering wheel off the end of the column and just let the column sit down in the driver footwell. And then you go up underneath, and then you can just actually drop the dash by 10 inches or a foot or something or other. And then you can ID all the wires back there and take those off. So that's the better way of doing that. So
thank God. Thank God. I spent a lot of time bent over backwards trying to get under that dashboard. It hurts.
Oh my gosh. That's why when you're doing a complete restoration, you do the chassis first, and then you put the body up on sawhorses, and you put the dash in and wire the dash, and put the windscreen on, and you put all the cockpit trim in. I mean, you just do all the stuff so you can stand up inside the car if you have to, and you can sit down on a little chair and do this. Just one comment about your wiring on your dashboard. On the headlamp switch, there's an S1 and an S2. S1, switch 1, switch 2, switch S1 are all the red wires, and there are about 6 red wires. God knows how they're all stuffed underneath that little tiny screw, but they are. You will never have success stuffing all those back underneath there again. I don't know, you just won't. And the red circuit is not fused. So get a long lead and bring it away from S1, hook that into an inline fuse. You can use a modern plug-in 2-pin plug-in fuse, or more accurately for the time, a fuse holder, for a tube type fuse. And then the other end of the fuse, hook that to all those 6 wires through a butt connector. You want to solder them, or whatever. You want to put a Lucas connector in there and put bullet connectors on the end. It depends what you want to do, but don't try to stuff all those 6 red wires or 5 red wires into that S1. Put a fuse in the circuit. it'll save you. It'll
Yeah,
save
that's beautiful. Thank you. Hey, by the way, so I learned, I pretty much had to learn how to repaint the MG this year because my paint was falling off. The old
Okay.
primer that was put on in the 90s was failing. So it's just paint's chipping everywhere on its own. And so like along those lines, Todd Tweedy had a question about stripping. I'm surprised you didn't mention this, but you can do a combination of chemical stripping and mechanical. Like if you're going to do this once, if you're going to do this all the time, I would just get a media blasted. But if you're going to do it once, go get the Jasco stripper. I tested a bunch of strippers, but Jasco, they sell it at Home Depot. It's not the cheapest stuff. It's not the most expensive. It works really, really well.
How do you spell that?
Jasco, Jasco. So I think 3 years ago, the government outlawed the old paint stripper, the stuff that used to work really well, and so it's all really weak now. Jasco works the best. It's not great, but it's decent if you wrap it in plastic and put that on for a half hour, and then you scrape it off. You do that a couple times. It'll actually get into the old primer. It's the only thing I've seen that'll actually get rid of some of the old factory primer in the MGs. It doesn't take it off completely, but it'll actually make a dent in it. And then you do the mechanical stripping with like a Scotch-Brite rotary pad. Put that on electric polisher or sander.
You're working on an MGA.
Yeah. Like you said, it's the hardest thing.
Yeah, and you separated the fender from the body then, or something or other to get it.
One panel at a time. Yeah.
All right. Well, then I think the other call was from an MGB, and that's got welded seams, and the stripper can get inside of there, and I swear you can't get it out. So anyway, yes, on an MGA fender, it's perfect. You can take the paint off with a heat gun. You can use anything. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
it's nice. Okay, where are you from, Rich?
Just north of Chicago.
Okay, all right. What, Crystal Lake or what? Lake Bluff?
Glenview.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So there's a couple MG guys around here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, big. When's the swap meet coming up? I haven't got anything about that yet, but
I don't know.
Okay, right. That's just to let people in the Midwest know, that's a fun swap meet. There's often, I don't know, 100 vendors, professional people with a lot of cool stuff, people with just boxes and boxes of used, broken junk. But there's nothing quite as exciting as someone else's box of used parts. So it's a great place to go and commune. Used to be in February, March.
John, next year it's the 27th of March.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug.
Sunday the 27th of March. Wheaton to DuPage County Fairgrounds in Wheaton, Illinois.
Okay, all right. Doug, thank you very much.
Hey, John, one last question for anybody who knows, because I've already got 17 tips here. Does anybody know if there's like a Black Friday sale on grills? Because I know Scarborough Fair makes them, but they don't have any Black Friday sales as far as I can tell. I don't know if anybody else has carries or redistributes their grills or not.
Just offhand, I doubt it, but is Calvin still on? Calvin, you guys got sales going?
Don't know. Have to go take a look. I've got a bunch of grills here at home. But that's probably not what you're looking for.
Okay.
We can cook.
Yeah, again, the last thing that you fit on an MGA is the grill, and you always make the car fit the grill on an MGA. You never make the grill fit the car because that just doesn't work. So you get the grill that you're going to use, and you take it to the body shop. Whoever's going to do all the metal work. I don't want to say Bondo work, but that's exactly what I mean. And you make the car fit the grill. So.
Hey, I'm sorry. One last thing. Speaking of Moss, so Moss, I started reproducing a 60s era Lockheed brake drum spring tool, and Moss has picked them up. They're going to be distributing them. starting next year, about twice the price. I have about 20 left. I can get rid of it. They're to install and remove those stupid brake drum springs.
Oh, those pyramids, the coiled springs.
Yeah, exactly. So if you, I sell them for like $12 the first one and free shipping on the second one if you got MG friends. But you can message me on MG Experience OT.
Okay. Thank you.
I got about 20 left.
I always used bird beak vice grips. You know, that I call them, I don't know what they're properly called, but they look like a bird beak, you know, and you just grab a hold of those and put that. I never had a factory tool, but that sounds real cool, Rich. So. Okay, from Mr. Hurston, how do you recommend moving and transporting a body that has been stripped of suspension? So usually that's on a cart. If there are rotisseries, everyone's seen a rotisserie that plugs into the front and back of the car, and then you can spin the thing around. Those are just great. You can make them. You can make a rotisserie. Our cars just don't weigh very much, and you're not going to put it on the rotisserie with suspension and engine and so forth. So there's not a lot of weight involved. You can scab one up out of 2x4s, and with casters on the bottom. But whatever you take to the paint shop, you want to make sure that the paint shop can move it around easily and spin it around so that they can cut in and get the whole bottom side, inside and outside, front side, back side, near side and off side, all painted without any interference. So that would be my go-to. Is you can go online and look at people who've made up rotisseries. You make them out of 2 engine stands. Anyway, that's one way of doing it. Is Mr. Hurston still on?
Indeed, I am.
Okay, where are you?
A beautiful Worcester County in south central Pennsylvania.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. So anyway, oh, I see you got I see it goes on there. You've got an MGB GT stripped body. So that an MGB is really easy to attach to with a pair of engine stands. I mean, you can find engine stands on Craigslist for $25, you know, and just get 2 of them, and then you have to weld to get it, or you can use a combination of metal and wood, but something that you can turn it is pretty easy. You can also, well, that's with the front. You want to paint this thing all together, so. That's my suggestion, because when it gets to the paint shop, they don't want to have to pick it up and lift it. That's just a hassle. And if you're able to spin it, then they can get the bottom side painted too, and it looks so much nicer. So I hope that's a little bit of help.
It does help. The idea of making a rotisserie out of engine stands is very helpful. But in terms of actually getting it to and from the body shop, you know, on a trailer, how would you suggest we get it on and off?
Call the wrecker.
Say again, please.
Call the wrecker. Call the tow truck. And
copy. Okay, thank you.
Just have them come, and they'll put a put a hook on it and drag it up on top of the bed and take it there. That's the easiest way of doing it. Otherwise, it's like 4 or 6 guys pushing it onto an incline ramp is just a hassle. So it's expensive, but just absorb that in the rest of all that expensive work that you're doing on it. So tow truck will cost you a couple $100. I just saw a tow that was $1,000, and it wasn't because the guy towed it all the way across Michigan. It was an accident, and they get so much for cleanup and so much for mileage and so much for this and that. $1,000 tow bill. All of a sudden, tow bills have hit the inflation too. So anyway.
Super. Thanks for your comments.
Hey, good luck. From Judd, he just wants to let everybody know that that he's going to be driving tomorrow. 5 or 6 of them are going to go out and drive to Brevard, North Carolina for brunch. At 2:30, the temperature should be around 60 Fahrenheit, sunny all the way. So that's the advantage of living in South Carolina in December. The downside of living in South Carolina is what, June and July?
Yeah,
Maybe.
July and August, we leave for breakfast at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we're through driving by 11:30.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see now. Heater motor on a Z-type magnet.
No, wrong. That should have been MGA.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. So the heater motor on the 62A doesn't come on. Well, sometimes you just got to spin it because it freezes up. So what I would do is take off that front housing that's got the valve in it, so you can get your finger in there and just make sure that it's powered up. You got power and you got ground, and then spin it by hand and see if you can get it spinning. Remember that an MGA heater and an MGB heater are pushing the air the same way. They're pushing it from the right side of the car to the left side of the car. But because the motor on the A is at the rear and the motor on a B is at the front, you can't use a B motor in an A. We can, but it just isn't anywhere nearly as efficient as a squirrel cage motor. And those are field wound, so you can't make them run backwards. They're stuck moving the way they are, no matter whether you hook them up positive or negative earth. But I bet if you just give it a spin with your finger and let it run for a little bit, it'll be okay.
Little basic than that. So the box, that kind of violin case shaped box, has either 3 or 4 clips running front to back. Do I simply take those clips off and that face will come off?
No, because it extends down inside.
Yeah, because there's a frame piece across the front of it that that isn't screwed, that I can't tell. I guess my question, how do you open it?
I don't think you can open it until you take it out. I think you have to take it out, take all the Phillips screws on that rectangle, take all the Phillips screws out, take the connections off the bottom, take the hoses off, and then lift the whole thing up out. Then take those clips off, and then it'll come apart.
That's what it looks like. I was just hoping that wasn't the right answer.
Yeah, but just take that flange off the front, that fresh air flange. Stick your finger in there and see if you can get it going like that.
Oh.
Sometimes it just sticks. It just gets stuck. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'll do that.
Okay, doke. All right, let's see. Gil Dupre, I think I spent 8 years. That probably means he thinks he spent 8 years restoring his car. I bet that's what that means. So, Pat G, local guy, had a basket case TD. And what's a basket case TD worth? What, $1,000, $2,000? Started on the restoration, bought a lot of parts, realized it was cheaper to buy a car than it was already done, sold the basket, and the body is now on a frame that was a Nebraska car. It's full of rot. So anyway, there's all kinds of stories about people who started restorations. Oh my gosh. Rich Stokes, I hate to be that guy, but painting at home is a lot easier than I thought. And the results were much cheaper and higher quality than I expected, but it's not for the faint of heart. Rich, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so what paint system did you use? What kind of paint?
I used a turbine sprayer. I don't have a dedicated air compressor, and they're super noisy. And they take up a lot of floor space, too much for a home garage. So I got a turbine sprayer, 5-stage, and a gun for about, I want to say $600 or $700 from Spray Fine. It's
Okay.
amazing, absolutely amazing. Got 2 different jets with that, you know, and then your typical stuff to strip and do all that. I use Tamco paints, clear coat, primer, really high quality, much less expensive than like the high end. God, what's the name of them? I can't remember the name of them, but they're phenomenal. They're really phenomenal. So the paint job came out amazing. I put some links. I was talking about that door gap thing earlier. I put some links in there, but you can see the car there. So far, I've only done the back half of the car, so the paint doesn't quite match because the old stuff from the 90s is pretty aged. It's a little bit darker, but it looks. I mean, it's show quality. I got quotes for like 40,000 to do the MGA, and so far I put in about 3,000 in my labor.
Hey, very cool.
Yeah, it looks like a show car.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, so you can do it at home. I always tell people I should do everything, but don't paint it at home. The old fashioned lacquer was nice because if you stumbled and put your hand into it, you just had to sand out your hand, or a fly flew into it, you just sand out the fly and spray it again. But new paint is more complicated than that. So where did you get this equipment? What's the name of the?
Spray Fine.
Spray Barn, B-A-R-N?
A Spray Fine, F-I-N-E.
Oh, Spray Fine.
A guy named Paul.
Okay.
Rich?
It's great. I mean, it's a little handheld unit. Weighs, probably 10 pounds.
Okay.
I put it on a drawer, in a shelf. It's that small, and it's basically a glorified vacuum cleaner in reverse.
Okay.
HVLP. It is really phenomenal. I mean, put it this way. So the last time I had the MG out on the last trip before it started getting cold, I brought it over to ABT, which is up in Glenview. And I came out of the store and I had a crowd of people looking at the car. And I think it was a combination of the paint job and like the gaps. If you get the gaps right, that's the secret of like when you look at a car and your jaw drops, people don't realize it's having even gaps. That's like kind of the secret of that. So, I mean, obviously you got to have a good paint job, but it's the gaps that really like draw people in. And some guy stopped me like the same trip. 20 minutes later, I went to the grocery store and I came out of the grocery store. The guy's taking pictures of the car. It was hilarious. It was great. So yeah, totally worth it.
That's a testament to your ability to work with the tools that you were able to get. So congratulations.
Hey, Rich, I got a question. Did you make your own paint booth?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Oh man, I spent weeks trying to figure this out. Go on eBay. There's some Chinese seller. They sell wedding tents. They're 10 by 10 foot wedding tents for about $30. And you get that and you tape the edges up with Gorilla Tape and then cut a hole in one side for the intake filter and tape a filter to it. Cut a hole on the other side for an outlet. Do the same thing. It's not the best airflow, but it'll work. And if you can paint like when it's like a little bit, when it's raining outside, you won't get any bugs or dust.
And where did you find that?
eBay. Literally $30.
eBay. Okay.
Yeah, I threw it out in the fall. I'm just gonna get another one in the spring.
A wedding tent. Yeah. Okay, got it. So the car just barely fits in it. And
oh, the car does not fit in it at all. It fits halfway, so you got to do the car section.
Maybe you could get 2 wedding tents. Yeah.
Good. It just looks ridiculous, but it's only fun.
Yeah, I went ahead and bought my wedding tent from Aleko, A-L-E-K-O. And then there's other places where you can get them on sale, discount for the wedding tents. And my experience has been about the same as yours. I painted my car all myself. Cost me almost about $3,800 for everything, but it's well worth it.
I mean, it's a $40,000-$50,000 paint job, honestly.
I think the best thing I can recommend for anybody is if you do decide to paint yourself, find yourself a good paint dealer, all right, that knows what they're doing, and they'll walk you through all the different paints and primers and everything that goes with it, and keep you right in check in stages of what you're doing. So this way you're making sure that everything matches all the way from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, totally. I use Tamco, but there's other ones.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I went with the DuPont RM products. Really durable.
Okay, let's see. Let's go on. We got we're down to 9:10. We'll go a little bit longer here. Maurice, list of people who can do body work and paint reliably for an MG, and where to start looking. It's got to be local, and you just have to hunt around for people who've had $40,000 and $60,000 paint jobs on their show cars. You got to find somebody. Normal body shops won't touch our cars. That's the rule. There's always exceptions, but they don't want to have to bang something straight. They certainly don't want to have to fix rust. It's just it's real hard for them to bid it. They make a lot more money doing insurance work. So you got to find somebody that's a custom paint shop. So. Okay, let's see. Yep, I've got Paul Evans. Where can I get a magnet parts catalog with all of those great assembly drawings? Again, that was on bookfinder.com. I don't know the AKD number on that, but Paul, are you still on? We're down to 88 people, about time to draw it down, but I'm just looking here. Oh, here's Prosmac MGA doors. Cannot get the spacing the same. What's the trick? I've been at it for days. Oh my gosh, MGA doors. Again, everything is predicated from the position of the door. Therefore, you've got to make the rear fender and the front fender fit the door, not the door fit the fenders. And the gap underneath the sill has to fit the door. So it's nothing more difficult than getting MGA doors to fit. Oh my gosh. Well, here, Greg Perigo working on a 64 Alva Courier that's been sitting since 1981. It's got a 1622 MGA drivetrain. Do you and the group have any leads on where I can find some car badges? You know, I don't. There's got to be Alva Couriers. The last Alva Courier I think I saw was in San Diego, and Jim Alcorn had it. Jim Alcorn's the MGA twin cam guy. He's from La Jolla. So anyway, it's yeah, Greg, there's got to be an Alva Courier group, isn't there?
There is. I work with some of those folks. What I'm looking to do, John, is to actually replicate some badges. I'm wondering if there might be someone who knows of some folks who could make some casts that I can have some glass enamel poured into. So I'm looking for a mold maker or a pattern maker.
Hemmings, the first 80 pages of Hemmings. There's got to be some leads in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea.
But boy, that's because you got basically what you got to do is get the enamel, the cloisonne out of some of the old badges, and then you use that as a guide for the new ones.
Right.
So, oh my gosh, what a project!
Yeah. It's been so much fun.
I bet.
It's
I bet
been
you're
so
still
much fun.
you're still in Fort Wayne.
I am, sir.
What's your weather?
Same as yours. It's been pretty cloudy, overcast, cold, but it's supposed to hit 54, I think, on Wednesday.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So I'm driving my GT every day.
Hey, bully for you. How long have you had that, Greg?
20 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Lee Wayne Fisher's old car.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and I don't know for sure, but you could probably go to a jeweler and ask them about making a mold. I mean, they make molds for rings and jewelry and that sort of thing, wax molds and that. It could be expensive, but it's a thought.
Yeah, no, that's a great one too. I'm not, there's, I'm never going to say cost is no object. That's just not true. But you do want these things to be somewhat correct. And John, I'll tell you, the challenge with this thing is not over restoring it. The challenge is just trying to make it look authentic. And I love Rich Stokes' comment about the $40,000 paint job for $3,000, because that's a $3,000 paint job was far better than they ever left the factory with.
Yes.
So it's really been a great fun project.
So you're part of NAMGAR, right? Because they've got a subgroup within the North American MGA register.
Yep.
For Alva Couriers.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
John?
Yes.
Can I go back there? You had a question a minute ago about the guy having trouble getting the gaps right.
Yes.
And what I did on my car, I also had a huge problem getting them right, especially from one side compared to the other. And I want to say it was 1/4 inch round stock, and just welded it to the edge of the frame from the top to the bottom. I bent it so that it would fit the door, and just tack welded it in place and then finished the welding. Then I was able to grind that down and get the gaps exactly where I wanted.
Okay.
So worked out really well.
Another
Okay.
thing that you can use instead of the 1/4 inch, depending on how much you need, is you actually use the MIG wire and MIG weld the MIG wire to the door skin. And then you're putting a little, about an 1/8 inch addition to it. And then you can grind that down too. So I had to do that on one of my doors because I had to replace the left front fender, which was oddly enough smaller than the original fender. So I had to add to it.
So you welded it actually on the door. I was avoiding the door because the door is aluminum, but I guess the edge of the door is metal. Is that what you're saying, or steel?
MGB.
Oh, on the MGB, I'm sorry, on the MGB, my
Oh.
door is steel. I'm sorry, yours is aluminum, which
Yeah.
is, yeah. But for us with the MGBs, we
Oh,
can
and
go
I was-
ahead and weld to the steel.
Okay, and I'm working on MGA, so that's why I had to weld onto the fender.
Yeah.
One of the, Carl Heidemann came up here a couple of times, but one of his comments is that before you take the car apart, photograph and measure all of the door gaps, because it's always going to be more difficult to get the car better than the factory did. So, and particularly on the late model MGBs, the door gaps can be just horrific. So it is going to take a lot of work to make the car look the way we want it to look from about 1 foot away compared to the way the factory built it.
Very
Yes.
good point.
That's all true. Thanks. Robert Guinness has put a link to a ZB manual here from mgbits.com. So those manuals, all the manuals are out there someplace. So anyway, there's still a bunch of new messages on chat. I wish I could get to them all, but it's 9:19. And I've got to call an end to it here, but not before I go up against Doug. You're still with us, Doug? Clark? Yes.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Yes, John.
All right, so Doug and I have our, here's my hat for tonight. You have a hat for tonight? Mine says United States Secret Service. Okay.
All right, John. The hat I have is another one of my collection out of the pith helmet collection, John. It's
Okay.
one that I wear to very often to the car shows, and it has this says MG, the pin MG, Woolsey here, MG, Triumph, and Morgan. And I wear this to a lot of car events and car shows. The thing is, the important thing is, John, is people, they don't remember my cars, but they remember the hat, and that's what's important. So, so anyway, this is one that served me well. And I've been actually in a couple of photographs in a couple of other car magazines wandering around the car field and wearing this, and people have called me out on it and said, hey, I saw your picture on page 64 of the Alfa Romeo magazine or something. But anyway, well, that's a pith helmet. It's kind of a shortened one, but it serves a purpose, John. So you with the Secret Service and me walking around car shows, we'll take care of everyone.
Okay, all right. Yeah, this is a nice hat here. United States Secret Service. I've got a United States Secret Service cloisonne pin, which goes on the lapel, and it's cloisonne. And I had a couple customers who are Secret Service, and the one guy goes, I showed it to him, and he goes, oh my God, if you ever want to sell that, says the ones they give us now are just plastic. So anyway, maybe Greg in Fort Wayne can make cloisonne Secret Service pins at the same time he's making Alva Courier badges. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for being on tonight. I wish I could get to all the questions. I can't. We look forward. Our next session is going to be 2 weeks from tonight. And that is, help me out, not the 6th, but the 13th of December. And the next one after that will be a couple days after Christmas, the Monday, the 27th. So again, I'll make my pitch for going to the website, and it's the Christmas season. Feel nice and tonight, and send something my way. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Calvin, for being on tonight. It's a surprise. Didn't expect to have you on. And Calvin is your go-to guy at Moss. He gets a lot more bizarre questions than I do, and he's got so many good stories. One of which was the guy that, I don't know, ordered points for his MGB, and he gets the points and they don't fit, so he calls up. Of course, he's chewing Calvin's here because the points don't work, and Calvin's trying to figure out what kind of distributor he's got in there. What was that? An 8-cylinder distributor? You got to unmute yourself. Hit your unmute, Calvin.
Doing it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He had a 8-cylinder Rover distributor with only 4 of the ports hooked up. So, yeah, that was different.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Calvin gets some tremendous ones, and he was able to finally explain why the MGB 5 main oil pump has that extra giant hole that causes so much trouble when you're putting the engines back together when you tear that gasket. It's like, what is that even doing there?
Yeah, I do not understand why they are still making that pump, because the number of front wheel drive 1800s is so few that it just does not make sense to make that version.
So if you can't get through to me, you can get through to Calvin. If you can't get through to us, you got MGA, you go to Barney, mgaguru.com. So we're all here to help. Love it. And wish everybody a great December, and drive your MG if and when you can. So that's a Judd. I think Judd's the only one left here. It's cruising around. So Right. Well, until later, ladies, gentlemen, thanks for being here. You can unmute yourself. We can all talk for a minute or two.
Thank you, John.
Bob,
Thanks,
Gloria,
John.
pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Nice job, John.
You guys.
Chuck,
Thanks, John.
real nice. What was our count tonight, Doug?
Oh, I sent you a note, 153.
153 tonight. Hey, tremendous. And I'll do my best at trying to get these up onto YouTube. So
I want to tell you, the facet fuel pumps now at Moss are $99, but you can get them online somewhere around the $60 price, but just a nice thing to have as a spare.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that. John, you still there?
Yes.
You mentioned Glenn Leonard and the facet fuel pump.
Yeah.
He is sold on the higher priced facet fuel pump. There's a tubular design facet pump, not the little rectangular one.
Okay.
The rectangular ones tend to be noisy. I mean, they work and they're fine. You definitely want a facet brand pump because there's a bunch of aftermarket junk ones out there that don't work very well. But the tubular one is the one that Glenn is really sold on. The thing to keep in mind is you do have to replumb the all of the fuel lines to be able to use something like that.
Sure.
Yeah. Personally, I still like the SU pump. Either the points or the solid state ones work. They're working pretty well.
Yeah.
I got
MGA's original.
David Massey here from Florida. Just wanted to give you an update. I was at the MG Jamboree a week ago at Safety Harbor, put on by Glenn's club. Glenn's wife was there. Glenn had been held up in his release from the hospital, but he did come home Saturday a week ago. And so he's doing better and he's home.
Yeah, he had a heart valve replacement or something, or?
Yeah, a valve, some sort of a valve. And at one point when we arrived at the show, he had been in the hospital retaining fluid, and somehow they got that under control. And like I said, I'm trying to think Glenn's wife, I can't think of her name, but
Gail
yeah,
Leonard.
Gail.
And he's back in the hospital again, I'm afraid. I'm keeping all
okay.
fingers crossed. He still has shortness of breath, so they're trying to figure out what's causing that.
Yeah, I think I just saw that on Facebook. So there's a couple of great, huge shops around the United States. I was one of them, and Paul Deershaw's is one, but Glenn's is one. And sometimes we hear from David Knock. He's more of a Healy guy, but from not Walnut Creek. Where did he move to? Where's British Car Specialist? Stockton. And sometimes he's on, but there's still some great huge shops that are 99% British, and although I think Glenn's does a little bit of odd stuff, but I think Paul's strictly British. Anyway, it's our prayers go out tonight to Glenn and Gail so that Glenn can get better and get back on the job, fix more MGs. So
I have a question for Kelvin about rear leaf springs. Moss, years ago, I bought 7 leaf springs for my MGB because I carry a lot of weight in the back. So I bought the GT springs, but you don't handle them anymore. You just handle the ones from, I think, 75 and above.
No, we should still have the full range of springs.
Okay, because I don't see it in the catalog. You have the 6-leaf spring, and a friend of mine ordered the 7-leaf spring, and it put his back end up real high because it's for the rubber bumper models.
Well, the GT was actually using the same, the rubber bumper used the same spring as the GT. So it's a 7-leaf spring.
Okay.
And then the rubber bumper cars, the front spring mounting point and the rear spring mounting point were both raised by about 1 inch. That's how they got the height.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
So Moss has got, I'm looking in the catalog, right now, and it's there's a 7-leaf spring in here for $100. But it's got an underline on it, and it's got a star. I don't know what that underline and the star mean, but but anyway, it's in the catalog. It's got a price.
Yeah.
Kelvin,
I want to say also to Kelvin, you a number of years ago, we stopped out there in Goleta and you gave us a nice tour.
Oh,
and
cool.
And I'm so glad you guys bought Victoria British, because I've been there a number of times, and except for one or two guys, I always expect the people behind the counter to say, "Would you like fries with that, sir?" They had no idea what you're talking about. So where Moss does.
Yeah,
So
it's important to understand Victoria British, well, Long Motor Corporation basically just backed out of the British car business. And so it's not a question. Yeah, it's not a question of us buying them out. They decided they didn't want to do it anymore. We bought their inventory, and we got their customer list so that we could try to maintain continuity.
Yeah, I appreciate Moss. I deal with Moss all the time, but I do it usually through Team Triumph out of Warren, Ohio. Scott Harper, because I can. He's an hour away from us, so I can have my part the same day. Yeah, so that's good. It's always Moss stuff.
Kelvin, it's really interesting what Moss is doing with their journal. I'm hoping that one day those are assembled into an anthology. They're great reading. But two questions. One on the leaf spring. I bought a few leaf springs for an MGB a few years back, and the problem is I believe that I'm twisting on the front mount. Was that one of the issues with the leaf springs that you were having? And the second is it possible, as we were talking fuel pumps, to actually still buy points for the fuel pumps? Yeah,
sure. I saw that in the chat. Moss does have points for the fuel pumps.
AUB 6106, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, points not a problem. We have our own points made, but also Berlin Fuel Systems in England makes their points. So there are at least two manufacturers of the points. The John, your head just disappeared there a moment. That was scary.
Hey, Cameron's doing funny things tonight.
Okay.
On leaf springs, the rear, one of the problems I believe, and I have to document this, is the problem with Bachelor Lean is that the rear mounting eyelet starts to open up. And that tends to cause the spring to actually lean over at an angle. And I think that's really what causes the Bachelor Lean. You end up with no clearance on the left-hand side of the car, and the left-hand side is lower than the right-hand side. So that's what I think Bachelor Lean is caused by. You could probably reverse that by having that ring tweaked. But as far as the current leaf springs that are available, as I said, it's kind of catch as catch can. I don't have any real recommendations unless I see the spring and I also get positive feedback. So I know at the moment Moss Motors did actually look at manufacturing their own springs, and we got a batch of them that came in that were absolutely spot on. They worked great. They were fantastic. Lots of positive feedback. And the company that was making them decided they didn't want to make them anymore. So we're back to having to buy them out of England, and hopefully the quality is good, but I don't know.
Thank you.
Well, okay. We're running at 9:30 now. Ladies, gentlemen.
Thank you, John.
It's been great. Usually Barney's on here. I don't know where Barney was tonight, but don't see him here. But anyway, it's been real. Rob Brackett, nice to see you on. Ron Nugent, you get any more work done on that car?
Hey, we're rewiring some lighting in the garage to help that out. And anyway, here on the west coast of California, 82 degrees tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. I see Sean English is on. I'm gonna put together an MGB engine in Virginia. I'm gonna put together Sean's engine next spring sometime when all the stars align. So Sean's, pleasure to see you on. Gary Greenstein, pleasure to see you on all the way from Victoria, BC. So anyway, it's been a pleasure. And until next time.
Thanks. Good night, John.
See you later, John.
Good night.
Good night, John.
Night,
Good
everyone.
night, John. Thank
Good night,
you.
all.
Good night. Good night.
Ooh, that's-